Welcome to our channel. This week, Jerry continues with the prophecies against the Pharaoh of Egypt. His unique style takes us deep into the understanding of this complicated process. Please like our video and subscribe to our channel.
So let's jump into it. Somebody read 31, 1 through 2, the first part of it, just 2a.
In the 11th year, in the 3rd month of the 1st day, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his hordes. Okay, so in this, Ezekiel's using a metaphor of a majestic cedar tree, okay, to illustrate the pride and eventual downfall of Egypt. But to do that, he's going to compare it against Egypt against Assyria. Assyria, remember, before this was the most powerful nation, and Egypt knew about Assyria with their beat bomb, but that was the world standard, if you will, for countries. And so he's going to show them how even their greatness didn't protect them. And so your greatness, Egypt, is not going to protect you. Remember, Ezekiel is a captive in the Babylon region, and he is going to go down to Egypt and tell the most powerful man in the world at that time, you're going to lose it all. You know, you're being bad to the Israelites. You're just, it's all over for you. And this is like I said, this is the 5th of the prophecies against Egypt. And it occurs about 2 months after the last prophecy, the 4th one, and about a month before the fall of Jerusalem. So it's given to the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, but also to the inhabitants of Egypt, if you will. The comparison is with the rise and greatness of a country in the fall, because now it's going to happen to you. There's a lot of information, and I can't give it all to you because I'm just now learning through the books about a group of people called the Nephilims. And the Nephilims are involved in this more than you could ever imagine. I'm going to read this, but it could be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be that these references are in here in 31 and 32, could be about the Nephilims as well as it could be about Assyria, because both were great and they fell. Great and fell. That's what he's trying to show Egypt. So it doesn't matter. It's not a faith-saving deal. You can believe one way or the other. It's just very interesting, and there's a lot of facts showing it both ways, okay? So let me read you something, though, because when I say Nephilim, it's like, oh, big guys, you know? The Nephilim were the offspring of the bad angels that decided they didn't want to live with God. They wanted to impregnate earthly women. They said, this is going to be cool. And then the result of that, of the children of that union, is the Nephilim. They're big guys, okay? And they call them giants. I'll show you different sizes, but that's not important really. But let me read you something, because when I go into this, because I'll mention the Nephilim occasionally through here, and I don't want you to get freaked out, okay? Because a lot of people don't talk about this. It says, few biblical topics make modern Christians more uncomfortable than the Nephilim. Mention Genesis 6. The sons of God and daughters of men, and the births of giants, and the response is often swift. Dismissal, allegory, or outright denial. Not because the text is unclear, but because the implications are deeply unsettling. At its core, the Nephilim narrative challenges a tidy, sanitized faith. If heavenly beings truly rebelled, crossed boundaries, and corrupted humanity, then Scripture is not merely moral instruction, it's a cosmic warfare. Many Christians instinctively recoil from that idea because it disrupts a modern, rationalized Christianity shaped more by Enlightenment comfort than ancient worldviews. One reason for denial is theological safety. Accepting the Nephilim as literal forces believers to grapple with supernatural rebellion beyond Satan alone. It raises questions about angels' authority, judgment, and why the flood was necessary. For many pastors and denominations, it feels easier to spiritualize the passage than to open the door they feel unequipped to explain. Another reason is cultural pressure. Western Christianity has spent generations trying to appear
reasonable, scientific, and respectful. Giants, fallen angels, and hybrid beings sound embarrassingly mythic to modern ears. Rather than challenge cultural skepticism, many believers unconsciously interpret Scripture to fit their modern sensibilities. There is also fear of misuse. Some Christians worry that acknowledging the Nephilim leads to fringe theology, speculation, or obsession. Instead of teaching discernment, the solution has often been silence. But silence creates ignorance, not maturity. Historically, this avoidance is relatively new. Second Temple Jewish writings, early church fathers, and even New Testament authors were not shy about cosmic rebellion. The early Christian worldview assumed a supernatural framework. In modern Christianity, that narrowed the lens. Denying or minimizing the Nephilim does not make the Bible safer, it makes it smaller. The discomfort many Christians feel is not a sign the passage is false, it is a sign it is doing exactly what Scripture does best, confronting human pride, limiting understanding, and false control. The question is not whether the Nephilim narrative is strange. The question is whether Christians are willing to let the Bible speak on its own terms, even when it challenges the version of faith we have grown comfortable with. Whether it was the Nephilim that we're talking about here, these people, or whether it was the Assyrians is immaterial, not immaterial, but it is not changing the thought of what we're talking about. A great nation rose up, a great nation didn't follow God, a great nation hurt his people, a great nation failed. God's in control. It doesn't matter which group, which way you go with that. It's kind of like, I was thinking about this morning. Do you remember when, I don't remember, it was Elijah or Elisha, was down by the river and the ravens fed him? You remember that story?
Elijah. I think it was Elijah.
Elijah, okay. The word, as they study more and more, the word for a raven is also the same word for whoever his enemies were at that time, the Baal worshipers or whoever it was. Which means, but when they interpreted it, the thought was, it can't be them. That's not possible. It had to be the birds that brought him food. So they made it be the ravens. That's the way they interpret it. Modern interpretation wouldn't interpret it that way. So it doesn't matter either way. God provided. Okay. So the message doesn't change. The details as we find them may, enlighten me. We're going to see Nephilims later on, it turns out. They were there. They came down. It was Satan trying to corrupt the genetic DNA of man so that when Jesus was born, he couldn't be fully man and fully God. He'd be partly man, partly angel, and fully God. Well, that would be not what the Bible says. So the Bible's not true. If the Bible's not true, God's not true, Satan wins. That's the war that's going on. That's what's happening. Okay. So that's why the flood had to come and wipe them out. There's giants after that. I'm not sure how all that works, but they're not the same group of people that the first set of giants were. Having said all that, we're going to go in here and we're going to say this as the Assyrian nation. Okay, I'm going to talk about that because jumping back and forth is very difficult. I didn't bring my t-shirt there. This one is on so many different levels of prophecy that it's incredible to try to keep track of it because he's talking about back then, during the earlier time, and then at the end times also. Because Egypt won't, according to what I've read, Egypt really, all the things they're talking about Egypt and the destruction it has in the 40 years, that's during that happens during the end of the tribulation and the beginning of the millennium, which has not started. Well, some people think it has, but it hadn't. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. A picture of this. There's the Assyrian king. The different sizes of Nephilim. It's really interesting. This. I'm thinking more of this size right here. Those guys couldn't have cohabitated with women. I'm sorry. That wasn't going to work.
I don't think so.
You got to think it's about to be more of this size. Just they're big guys, 8-9 foot tall, but that's big enough. One of the things that talk about here is that, and what was it King Og and King Sion? They were giants also. And remember when they went into the promised land, they came out and said, oh, the Nephilim, the Enoch, and all these different guys that are gigantic people. They'll kill us dead. And God says, no. I'm going to give you the land. But part of the reason why, and I'm not sure I understand this or fully believe it, but God said something terrible. It says, go into Canaan and kill everything. Men, women, children, dogs, cats, horses, cows, pigs, chicken, kill it all. I don't want anything left. And they go, right on. They're going there. Oh, pretty woman, let's save her. Good, strong guy, let's save that one. Nice horse, He goes, no, then you're going to have problems from now on, and it's going to bug you. Oh, even today, they're going to bug you for that land because you didn't follow my orders.
You think about it, it's the same process as the flood. He was trying to completely eradicate the DNA.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, moving right along swiftly, go with somebody read from the 2b, the end of 2b, where I stopped you before, and all the way through 6.
Who can be compared with you in majesty? Consider Assyria, once a cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches overshadowing the forest. It towered on high, its top above the thick foliage. The waters nourished it, deep springs made it grow tall. Their streams flowed all around its base and sent their channels to all the trees of the field. So it towered higher than all the trees of the field. Its boughs increased and its branches grew long, spreading because of abundant waters. All the birds of the sky nested in its boughs, and all the animals of the wild gave birth under its branches, and all the great nations lived in its shade.
So he's talking about the who are like you. You're talking to Egypt. Who's like you? Who's great? Assyria. But now it was interesting because most of the versions say "Behold Syria," but Assyria. But in the King James version, the older version, "Behold thus Assyria," indicating it's a person. Assyria being the name, one of the is being the head of the Nephilim or something like that. But basically saying these guys have great power and they're going to be brought down. Okay. Using the Assyrians by Ezekiel was they all knew there's still remnants of the Assyrian economy, the Assyrian government, the Assyrian lands, and everything else. And people knew that he was going to do about the Assyrians. So he's going to use that as an example. They may have forgotten about the Nephilim. So we'll use the Assyrian example. And the argument that Ezekiel's getting is simple. Egypt boasted of its greatness, yet Egypt wasn't as great as Assyria. As great as you think you are, you weren't as great as Assyria. Oh, wait. Assyria was conquered by Babylon. Conclusion, you can be conquered by Babylon. At this point, they're riding high. They don't think anybody can touch them. Wait, that still happens today. People think you're untouchable. Nations think they're untouchable. What God is saying through all this here for us today, He's in control. He will make them rise up. He will make them fall down in His time, in His way, by His method. Not us. We try to do like treaties and negotiations and all that. That's not what's going on. But it's God's making the plan through there. He's using people that don't know they're being used by Him to do His bidding, so that His plan works out. Okay? It's just good for us to pay attention to that. It should make you more, not relaxed, I don't know what the right word.
Aware.
Humble, aware. Yeah, thank you. That somebody's in control, because it doesn't look like anybody is.
Yeah, but Betsy is.
But God is. Okay, He really is in
Good
control.
and bad.
Yeah. Oh, rain falls in everybody's life and we may not live through something, but that's not the point. Being with Him forever is the point. Okay. It says the waters made it grow. Ezekiel described as a tree is watered from, didn't lack any nourishment or anything. What's happening here is, Assyria had the Tigris and Euphrates River. Well, Egypt has the Nile River. Okay. And it says in verse 6, and all the nations lived under its shade. The greatness of Assyria and the greatness of Egypt made it a place for other nations to live under their protection. Before its fall, many in Jerusalem hoped that they would find protection under Egypt's power. Okay, so somebody read verses 7 through 9.
It was majestic in beauty with its spreading boughs, for its roots went down to abundant water. The cedars in the garden of God could not rival it, and could the junipers equal its boughs? Nor could the plane trees compare with its branches. No tree in the garden of God could match its beauty. I made it beautiful with abundant branches, an envy of all the trees of Eden in the garden of God.
So not only was Assyria and now Egypt powerful and big and the greatest, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's a great place with multiple branches. In other words, these are all the nations around them that were a part of and protected by and assumed security through these countries. Okay. And God made it beautiful. God made it beautiful. Somebody read 10 to 12.
The sovereign Lord says, because the great cedar towered over the thick foliage, and because it was proud of its height, I gave it into the hands of the ruler of the nations for him to deal with according to its wickedness. I cast it aside, and the most ruthless of foreign nations cut it down and left it. Its boughs fell on the mountains, and in all the valleys its branches lay broken in all of the ravines of the land. All the nations of the earth came out from under its shade and left it.
Okay, so it was a proud tree, but it's also a proud nation. And I will give it to the hand of despots of the nations. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar is going to come in and conquer Assyria. Oh, he's going to come in and conquer Egypt also. Okay, God's given that to him. Nebuchadnezzar was not a Christian Baptist. And he just wasn't. As much as you may want him to be, he's not. He was being used by God. He didn't know it. You know, he recognized God at different times, but he didn't know what was going on with it. And says alien triumphs and nations cut it down. The same thing's going to happen with Egypt. A lot of the commentaries don't give all the stuff, but they're talking about, it happened when they kind of fudge in the timing for the 40 years and all that kind of stuff. That hadn't happened. That's not going to happen until the end of the tribulation. The 40 years is during the millennium reign. So this destruction is going to happen later on to Egypt. Their destruction is going to happen later on. That's going to make them to where no one will be able to be in the country for 40 years.
Okay, somebody read verses 13 and 14 of chapter 31.
On its ruin will remain all the birds of the heavens, and all the beasts of the field will come to its branches, so that no trees by the water may ever again exalt themselves for their height, nor set their tops among the thick boughs, that no tree which drinks water may ever be high enough to reach up to them. For they have all been delivered to death, to the depths of the earth, among the children of men who go down to the pit.
The birds, the fallen Assyria is still noted for its glory, even though it's already fallen. Okay, and many would come but not find shelter. They're going to rely on it, but they can't find it. It says, in order that all the trees by the waters man may be exalted. God would use his dealings with Assyria to be a lesson to all the nations. Egypt is the one he's talking about. If they would listen, they're still not listening. It says they would see what happens to a great power when it becomes proud and arrogant. Okay, proud and arrogant and against his people. Okay, that's a thing that's really not a good thing for countries do. It would teach the nations that are all under the power of death, and each one of them was mortal and would have a day of reckoning for God and all creation. It says, among the sons of men, and this could be when he's talking about the Nephilim, okay, the sons of men, with those who go down to the pit. Okay. The pit is a great leveler. Okay. It's Sheol. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And that's where everyone in Sheol is equal. And what we're going to find out is when Egypt gets down there, all these other nations are going to be there, greeting them. Hey, oh, you thought you were so good. Come and join us. You're going to be in here with us forever. Now, let's talk about Sheol for a minute. The word pit is also Sheol. That's the Hebrew word for it. Hades is the Greek word. Okay. And there's a lot of verses that I won't go through, but basically it's at the center of the earth. Never thought about that. And it has two compartments. First compartment is for those that are righteous that died. Okay. This is before Christ came. Okay. This is back then, before Christ came. The first of the righteous, and that's called Abraham's bosom or paradise. Okay. That's the word for that part of it. The second compartment for it is for the unrighteous. And this is Hades, hell, the pit, or Abaddon. Okay. That's one, and this second deal is in three different locations, three different sections. So that right there, which is and the humans are the ones that go there. If you died before Christ came and you were a righteous person, you went there. If the abyss was for angels, okay. The third deal was Tartarus. Yeah, Tartarus, and that is for those bad angels that cohabitated with women. Special location in hell for them, not to be with anybody else. They chose to leave their status, which was angel, and they chose to be, so it wasn't Satan. These were outside of Satan's deal. He may have worked with them, I don't know, but it's the angels that chose to come to earth. They gave up their ability to be an angel to become a man because they lusted for the women so bad. They go, well, good looking ladies. I'm going to go down there and be with that. I can't do that as an angel because angels can't procreate. If I come down here, I can do it. Okay, I'm going. But this is all temporary, remember, because when Christ came, the ones in Abraham's bosom went to heaven. Okay. All the rest of them were still down there. At the end, it says, very, very, very end, during the great white throne judgment, then the hell, which is Hades and all these three parts of it, will then be thrown into the lake of fire.
Typical stupid man.
Well, there's a comment on it. Thank you so much for that, Jen. Okay, somebody read 15 and 17.
This is what the sovereign Lord says. On the day it was brought down to the grave, I covered the deep springs with mourning for it. I held back its streams, and its abundant waters were restrained. Because of it, I clothed Lebanon with gloom, and all the trees of the field withered away. I made the nations tremble at the sound of its fall when I brought it down to the grave with those who go down to the pit. Then all the trees of Eden, choicest, the best of Lebanon, and all the trees that were well watered, were consoled in the earth below. Those who lived in its shade, its allies among the nations, had also gone down to the grave with it, joining those killed by the sword.
Okay, so he's saying that on the day that I went down the Sheol, I caused lamentation. When God brought judgment upon the Assyrians, because he's now telling this through Ezekiel to the Egyptians, the other nations noticed it and mourned because they were the great protector of all the little nations all around them. Okay, and so they knew that if God would do that to them, the big one, he'll do it to us too. And they were aware that God was doing this to the nations. So the other people of the world knew what God was doing because of what they were being told by the prophets. And so they were concerned. They thought about it. I mean, you say something like that today and people go, out of the Bible? Come on, guy. This is the 21st century. We don't follow that for our rules. As a government, that's what people are obviously saying. Okay, but back then, they did know because they've watched Israel move through the deal with the fire in the front and the smoke during the day and fire at night. They understood there is a God that controls the world, and it's these people that he's with. Okay. Now, and he says, the nations quake at the sound of his fall. They had some kind of, we think of these people's old, they always show on TV with dirt on their face and they're not clean and they had worldwide communications. They wouldn't know this. I didn't have internet, they didn't have electricity, but people moved around and people talked and people knew what was happening. So although we think of them as, or maybe I did, was the only one, thought of them as ancient people that didn't have much, no. They knew what was going on. And they believed what was happening. They understood what was happening, much more so than we do. Okay. So then somebody read one more chapter, verse 18.
Which of the trees of Eden can be compared with you in splendor and majesty? Yet you too will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the earth below. You will lie among the uncircumcised with those killed by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his hordes, declares the sovereign Lord.
So all the trees are going to be brought down, all of them are going to be, but this is the kicker of all kickers. Egypt was a nation that believed in circumcision. And he's saying, yeah, when you get down there, you can just lie down. You're just going to be in there with all your uncircumcised friends. But the thought of them, they build these pyramids and make all these special arrangements so they can be and they're going to be in hell with the uncircumcised people. That is to them the worst of worst things that could be possibly happening. Oh, this is the message that Ezekiel is going to give to Pharaoh. What a interesting day that was. Somebody read, we're jumping into chapter 32, verses 1 through 8.
And it came to pass in the 12th year, in the 12th month, and on the first day of the month, that the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, You are like a young lion among the nations, and you are like a monster in the seas, bursting forth in your rivers, troubling the waters with your feet, and fouling their rivers. Thus says the Lord God, I will therefore spread my net over you with a company of many people, and they will draw you up in my net. Then I will leave you on the land. I will cast you out on the open fields, and cause to settle on you all the birds of the heavens. And with you I will fill the beasts of the whole earth. I will lay your flesh on the mountains, and fill the valleys with your carcass. I will also water the land with the flow of your blood, even to the mountains, and the riverbeds will be full of you. When I put out your light, I will cover the heavens and make its stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All the bright lights of the heavens I will make dark over you, and bring darkness upon your land, says the Lord God.
So this is the sixth prophecy against Egypt. And this is like about a year after the fall of Jerusalem. And he said, you're like a sea monster. Now, Pharaoh thought of himself as a lion. He mentions the lion there. He thought of himself as a lion, brave and strong. God thought of him as a sea monster, a terrible person. Pharaoh and his kingdom were mighty forces in the world, second only to Babylon. And Babylon had only recently subdued Egypt at the Battle of
Carchemish.
Egypt was still a great force with the ability to influence and trouble other nations. And muddy the waters of your feet. I thought that's kind of cool. What he's saying there is Pharaoh had thrashed about in the waters and made a big scene. And as he did, he just muddied the waters up. He just made things worse. Okay, Pharaoh was not helping the world situation. But when he gets to the people or the thing, what's going to happen is he's saying there's going to be nothing left to muddy the waters. I mean, there's not going to be anybody bringing grain down to the river. There's not going to be people coming down the river. There's not many animals or people stepping in the river to muddy it up. It's going to, it's going to be real nice. We'll talk about that in a minute, some more on that. It's just, and now I spread my net over you. He's going to throw out his net. God's going to do it. God's going to take the net and have Egypt destroyed, and I'll bring you up into the green fields. Basically, one of the things he says is this was literally fulfilled back when Hopers, which is the Pharaoh's army, was slain near Libya, and they were thrown onto the land, and the birds came and ate them up. It says you also drink the discharge of your blood. The idea is that the defeat of Pharaoh would be a good thing for the world. It would bring water to the land. Okay, that was a good thing. And it will set darkness on you. The darkness is the same type of darkness that happened during the 10 plagues. Okay, 3 days. Remember that darkness? It was a dark. There was no light anywhere except in the houses of the Israelites. Okay, but there's no sun, moon, stars. You light a match and there's no light. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. Now, remember, we've talked a long time ago about there is still yet another set of darkness days coming, probably 3 days in the world. Maybe hopefully after the rapture, not before, but it could be before because it doesn't matter. The sequence, it could be before. If so, when you turn your flashlight, you turn yourself on, and there's no light, and it's dark in your house and it's dark outside, you can say we're in that 3 days of darkness.
Batteries.
You what? Yeah, but step outside and look, see if there's a sun or moon or stars. Yeah. That'll be those will be some keys to this happening, and that's not a time to be. If we're around still, then which we could be, it's not a time to be afraid. You just go, oh, it's happening too. We're real close now. So it'd be kind of interesting. Somebody read 32, 9 through 16.
I will trouble the hearts of many peoples when I bring about your destruction among the nations, among lands you have not known. I will cause many peoples to be appalled at you, and their kings will shudder with horror because of you, when I brandish my sword before them. On the day of your downfall, each of them will tremble every moment for his life. For this is what the sovereign Lord says: the sword of the king of Babylon will come against you. I will cause your hordes to fall by the swords of mighty men, the most ruthless of all nations. They will shatter the pride of Egypt, and all her hordes will be overthrown. I will destroy all her cattle from beside abundant waters, no longer to be stirred by the foot of man or muddied by the hooves of cattle. Then I will let her waters settle and make her streams flow like oil, declares the sovereign Lord. When I make Egypt desolate and strip the land of everything in it, when I strike down all who live there, then they will know that I am Lord. That this is the lament they will chant for her. The daughters of the nations will chant it for Egypt and all her hordes. They will chant it, declares the sovereign Lord.
Verse 9 says, I will trouble the hearts of many people. The effect of this downfall of Egypt would be widespread, bringing desolation to its own land, supply of booty to other lands, make men everywhere tremble in the presence of the judgment of Jehovah. When these things happen, the world will know about it, and the world will understand what's going on. And their kings will be horribly afraid. If God's mighty judgment could come upon Egypt, it could come upon them. That's why the other nations will be afraid. Look what he did to Assyria. Look what he did. Look what he did. Not what we planned and messed up. What he did. They're going to be able to understand that he did it, not them. We don't have that consciousness right now. I think we will at some point. It will be so obvious that it's God that you can't not understand that. And he does that so that you'll know that he's God. He's just trying to be a friend, man. Some people it thinks a 2x4, some people it's a 2x6. And then it says the king of Babylon shall come upon you. God is making it clear that he is bringing judgment upon Egypt through war brought upon them by the king of Babylon. Make sure they understand who is doing what and why they're doing it. Will cause the rivers to run like oil. This is what I was talking about. There won't be any animals or people left to muddy the water up, so the water will go smooth as silk like oil flowing down there. Nobody threshing around. No peace treaties trying to be made. No governments trying to figure things out. Things are just going to flow. Okay. Then they will know that I'm Lord. Says one of the commentaries, Mr. Block said, now we learn Yahweh's ultimate goal is in humiliating Egypt. the universal acknowledgement of his person, God, and his involvement in human affairs. People need to know that. Okay. He did it back then, he's done it all along. He's probably trying to tell us that now. If you would listen, there's so many things going on, and we think, oh, some people say I've solved all these wars. Some people say, I'm doing this, I'm protecting Mother Russia, I'm doing, they're all saying different things. It's God that's making it happen the way it's happening in the timing it's happening. So now we're jumping into the final prophecy of Ezekiel. Somebody read 17 through 21.
In the 12th year, on the 15th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, wail for the hordes of Egypt and consign to the earth below both her and the daughters of mighty nations, along with those who go down to the pit. Say to them, are you more favored than others? Go down and be laid among the uncircumcised. They will fall among those killed by the sword. The sword is drawn. Let her be dragged off with all her hordes. From within the realm of the dead, the mighty leaders will say of Egypt and her allies, they have come down and they lie with the uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword.
So wail for the multitudes of Egypt. Egypt's destiny is to go to Sheol, to the pit. And in verse 19 it says, whom do you surpass in beauty? And one of the comments from one of the commentators says, how little does it signify whether a mummy be well embalmed, wrapped in rich stuff, and beautifully painted on the outside or not? Go down into the tombs, examine the niches in the tomb, and see whether one dead carcass is preferable to another. A dead carcass is a dead carcass, folks. But they're trying to make all this stuff up here. But no. God said that's how it works. And it says, the strong and mighty one shall speak of him and his helpers in the midst of Sheol. As multi-level prophecy, Ezekiel is speaking of Egypt going into Sheol and meeting with the Assyrians, who were their enemy, who were greeting them. It says, about time you guys get here. And Egypt's going to go, oh, you guys were terrible. Oh, we must have been terrible too. What a comment. And it said, but the other thing was, one of the other commentators says, the inhabitants of Sheol are not asleep, but fully conscious. They are aware of one another and their relative position. They also know that their assignment was determined by their conduct during their tenure in the land of the living. So there's a lot of people who say, oh, bad people, when they die, they vaporize. They're no more. No. Everybody lives forever. Which way where you want to live is your choice. But then they say, well, yeah, but when you're there, you don't exist, something like that. No. You will know, and you'll know why you're there. And you'll know he was more important than I was. And he's here. That's all that's going to be in your mind. That part doesn't go away. Okay, somebody read 22 to 30.
Assyria is there with her whole army. She is surrounded by the graves of all her slain, all who have fallen by the sword. Their graves are in the depths of the pit, and her army lies around her grave. All who had spread terror in the land of the living are slain, fallen by the sword. Elam is there with all her hordes around her grave. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. All who had spread terror in the land of the living have fallen uncircumcised to the earth below. They bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. A bed is made for her among the slain, with all her hordes around her grave. All of them are uncircumcised, killed by the sword, because their terror had spread in the land of the living. They bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. They are laid among the slain. Meshach and Tubal are there with all their hordes around their graves. All of them are uncircumcised, killed by the sword, because they spread their terror in the land of the living. But they do not lie with the fallen warriors of old, who went down to the realm of the dead with their weapons of war, their swords placed under their heads and their shields resting on their bones. Though these warriors have also terrorized the land of the living. You too, Pharaoh, will be broken and will lie among the uncircumcised with those killed by the sword. Edom is there, her kings and all her princes. Despite their power, they are laid with those killed by the sword. They lie with the uncircumcised, with those who go down to the pit. All the princes of the north and all the Sidonians are there. They went down with the slain in disgrace. Despite the terror caused by their power, they lie uncircumcised with those killed by the sword and bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. Wow.
That's a lot of people in the pit.
Yeah.
Okay, with it. It's the 6 other nations.
Bam, bam, bam.
It's the 6 nations that we talked about earlier. God's talking to 7 nations, Egypt being one. He's talking about these other 6 other nations. And I wrote the list down. Originally in the list, we had Assyria, Elam. In this list here was Syria was there, Assyria was there, Elam, Mesha, Tual, Edom, and Sidonians. Okay. And I tried to I couldn't find any reference to it, but I know, but before we've been talking about what are the 6 nations? Ammon, Moab, Edom, Tyre, and Sidon. Their comments were that the interpreters, they say they don't know who this Mesha and Tubal are. They're a part of this group here. If we just figured that out, the reason they even bring up the Mesha and Tubal is because they were so bad that they didn't even get to take their weapons down there with them. The other guys get to have their weapons for why you need a sword in shell, I don't know. But it was a big embarrassment to these 2 guys that they didn't get to bring their sword with them. I mean, they entered and hey, how you doing? Where's your sword? Oh, going back to. And then somebody read the last ones, 31 to 32.
Pharaoh, he and all his army will see them, and he will be consoled for all his hordes that were killed by the sword, declares the sovereign Lord. Although I had him spread terror in the land of the living, Pharaoh and all his hordes will be laid among the uncircumcised with those killed by the sword, declares the sovereign Lord.
So the Pharaoh, he will see and he will be comforted. What? Well, Ezekiel is ironically mentioned that some small comfort would come to Pharaoh. The comfort would come from knowing that he was not the only one to suffer such shame and disgrace and judgment. That's some comfort, I guess. That's little comfort. And then it says, though I instilled terror in him and land living, God closed his words of judgment to Egypt through Israel with a solemn warning of judgment. It says, this comment of one of the commentators was, this oracle, this 2 chapters, affirms that Yahweh is the Lord not only of individuals, but also of history. The rise and fall of nations may appear attributable to charismatic, gifted leaders, but behind all international movements, one must acknowledge the supreme hand of Yahweh, who alone fixes the time and the season of their lives, sets the limit of their conduct, determines the nature of their downfall, appoints the agents of judgment, and in the process accomplishes his goal, the universal recognition of his power and his person. Think about what's going on today. I mean, he is the time, does Putin get to control things? No. But he's, it looks like he's in charge of some things. Is he going to take over Ukraine? It's a real good possibility.
I think of it as all the leaders are pawns. They're really not kings and queens. They're really pawns.
Yeah. Well, he puts leaders in place to carry out his judgment. He says, hope for good leaders, because good leaders are going to punish the bad people. He never talks about the bad leaders punishing the good people, but that's the case. Okay. But he's saying at the time, not years ago or years in the future, at the time of what's going on, the amount of destruction you do and the amount of whatever you do, how it's done, that's God. So you guys, you've got to understand who is in control and why he's in control and what he's trying to do to let you know he's in control. So if you don't study this book, bad for you. What do you say?